G'day, it's Baron Dodger. This is an important message for every Australian. If there's no easy way to say this, I can now prove that the Australian government attempted to assassinate me. And I'm making that accusation right here, right now. I accuse the Australian government of not only assassinating me through manipulations of policy and the law, and that I died in a fatal injury, and then I was revived from certain death, only to be forced to live in my car as a disabled person in this democracy under the care of the NDIS. The NDIS Minister, Bill Shorten, is responsible for ordering an assassination attempt on my life. And I've proven it in the documents that are below in the notes. The first thing that happened is I'm a whistleblower. I exposed corruption for the purposes of not only saving my life, but of for the purposes of democracy and humanity everywhere. And a legitimate person who makes a public interest declaration is legally supposed to be protected under the PID Act. This has not happened, and my entire existence is a political retaliation. Now, Bill Shorten weaponised an entire Victorian police force. He got them to locate me, interrogate me, arrest me, and then he coordinated an attack with a corrupt magistrate, the corrupt legal system and legal aid, and NDIS providers and a hospital to channel me towards jail. And in doing that, they deliberately acted to cause my exile to where I am now in New South Wales. I am a disabled person in this country, and I live in political exile in New South Wales, away from my home in Victoria. And that in itself is an egregious human rights violation. I was already running from political persecution, and this country's constitution is being breached because it has left me unprotected as a person who is sticking up for himself and everyone else in the country. Because if this can happen to me, it can happen to you. I want people to stick up for me. So I've been caused to political exile by the same NDIS minister who is legally obliged and touts that he is able to care for disabled people. But instead of doing that, he used his political privilege and the amazing power he has to victimise me, a disabled person, and cause my exile. This was deliberate. To conquer someone or an enemy, you need to isolate them. And that's what the NDIS minister did when he caused my exile to New South Wales, where I am now. Any single person who refuses to acknowledge my political exile is aligning with my perpetrators. Go forward a bit, I was financially entrapped to the NDIS. So how they did that, they obstructed my legal aid, and I still have never had a lawyer in my entire existence. And that is my right as a disabled person under the UN Human Rights Charter, which Australia has ratified in 2008. So the UN Human Rights Charter has been breached by the Australian government. Time went on and they entrapped me to poverty by rejecting my legitimate work cover settlement because they said I wasn't an employee, but I have a federal court document satisfied that I was employed by DSS, meaning my work cover should be immediately paid. They obstructed my marriage settlement with Steve Isonides, ASIO employee, and my former fiance of 5 years. There isn't a police officer, a public official, a politician, or a lawyer who will acknowledge that relationship existed. That's important because the government prefer a narrative in which that relationship never existed. After Bill Shorten entrapped me to poverty, he kept me prisoner. Physically, I couldn't leave the property. I was entrapped financially, and I had exposed the minister in $6 billion of misappropriated funds because Tony Riddle, a senior NDIS fraud investigator, came to my house and we had sex and did drugs, and I recorded the whole thing and published it to my YouTube channel. This exposed the minister's complicity in the $6 billion corruption case. You can look it up on this YouTube channel. Bill Shorten was not happy with me. If he had have accepted my public interest disclosure, as is his legal remit, he wouldn't have suffered my exposure of $6 billion that he knew about. So he ordered my assassination. He did this by a tender to Lebanese criminal gangs and incentivized a criminal network to locate me and kill me.